welcome everyone to yet another interesting episode of Environment Primer. In this episode, we are going to discuss about the UN Water Conference of 2023. Water is the driving force behind nature. It is very important for sustaining life on Earth. And apart from facing climate change, the countries today are also dealing with the problem of water scarcity or the depletion of water, which is a hot burning environmental issue as of now. In this discussion, we'll dive deep into the following points of discussion, that is water for sustainable development. We'll talk about the use of water for sustainable development. We'll also see the water action decade, which has announced by the United Nations. We'll also discuss the UN Water Conference of 2023. We'll also analyze its key outcomes. We'll also talk about the India's water vision, and in the end we are going to discuss a practice question for your prelims examination and a practice question for your mains examination. So if we try to understand the background of our today's topic, it is talking about the United Nations Conference for Water Conference of 2023. And where was the venue? The venue was in New York. New York, USA. And the conference happened from March 22 to March 24 in 2023. Why? Because as I was discussing this before also, that the countries are not only reeling under the effects of climate change, they are also facing depletion of water. That is why they decided to sit together and discuss the 2030 agenda for water conservation, and they also discussed that why they need to accelerate their efforts towards water conservation. We'll be studying about all of this in our further slides. So now let us discuss water, preservation of water as a sustainable development goal. So what is this term sustainable development? If I try to explain it in very simple terms, sustainable development means that we got the natural resources from our ancestors which we are currently utilizing. So the development should happen in such a way that the future generations also are able to utilize the current resources which we are utilizing. So we should leave the natural resources for future generation as well, and this is known as sustainable development in very simple terms. If I talk about water, water also forms a core principle of the SDG goals. So what happened was, when we were drafting these SDG goals, we focused on the conservation of water as well, and water was placed as goal number 6. Goal number 6 of the sustainable development goals, which talks about ensuring access to clean water and sanitization. Water though is a infinite resource, but we need to preserve and conserve it. Why? Because we cannot say that okay, as it is a renewable energy resource, it will renew automatically by itself. No, we need to preserve the water because it is getting depleted at a very fast rate. And today more than 1.7 billion people, this is a United Nations data, live in river basins where depletion exceeds the natural discharge of water. And if this continues to happen, then 2/3 of the world's population living in water stressed areas by 2025. So 2/3 of the world population, this is a huge number. And if we do not conserve water, they will start living in water scarce areas by 2025. So we have very less time. And that is why the United Nations also took cognizance of this fact that okay, the countries need to accelerate their efforts towards water conservation, water preservation, and that is why it became the forerunner in equitable distribution of water, as well as ensuring that the countries are taking action to preserve the water. And that is why it has declared the period from 2018 to 2028 as the International Decade for Action on Water for Sustainable Development, in order to expedite initiatives aimed at addressing water related challenges which the world is currently facing. And it has two main goals. This water action decade has two main goals. first goal is knowledge sharing. So it talks about the transfer of knowledge between various countries in the world in relation to water pollution, and also solving the problem of water pollution, and also sharing of information on the water related SDGs outlined in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. It also talks about improving communication within the countries, so as to talk about the Sustainable Development Goal and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So this was the Water Action Decade. Now let us talk about the UN Conference, Water Conference of 2023. So if I talk about the United Nations Conference on 2000, Water Conference on 2000, which happened in 2023, it is a very important global forum in which most of the countries came together to discuss the problem of water depletion and to solve or accelerate their efforts towards water conservation. The United Nations 2023 Water Conference was held after a 46-year gaps. Imagine, so long time has passed when the countries first discussed this issue, and now they are discussing it again, coinciding with the review of the implementation of the UN Decade for Action on Water and Sanitization. So this is what I was explaining before also, that the UN has declared a decade for improving efforts on water as a sustainable development goal. So in this conference, the countries came together to discuss what they are doing to achieve the goal number 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals. If I talk about the historical background of this conference, the first such kind of conference happened in Mar del Plata, Argentina in 1977 and resulted in the first global action plan. This is very important. First global action plan recognizing that all peoples have the right to access drinking water as well as they have a right to sanitized water. In fact, if I talk about water as a human right, water as a human right is recognized under Article 1 of the UDHR, or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. If I talk about Indian Constitution, Article 21 of our Indian Constitution, which talks about right to life and personal liberty, also talks about right to water as a human right. Water as a human right. So what was the theme of the United Nations Water Conference of 2023? It was Our Watershed Movement, uniting the world for water. So this theme is based on 3 pillars. First is the water security, in which we will be talking about, which the countries will be talking about the impacts of climate change on water and infrastructure, and also they will be talking about the conservation efforts which each country is taking. Then there is water as an SDG. So the conference also happened on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which includes conserving of water as well. Then there is water peace. That means you will transfer technology from one country to another, and you will also address the transboundary issues that are related to water. So all of these pillars of theme were there in the United Nations Water Conference of 2023. So let us now discuss the key outcomes of this conference which happened in 2023. So the first outcome was a new water action agenda. So we were discussing this before also, that the first action agenda was formed as back in 1977. So now we need a new action agenda for water conservation. Why? Because we are dealing with new issues, new problems have cropped up, and that is why the country decided to have a new action agenda for water conservation, in which they will also monitor the water conservation efforts which they are taking, and they will also talk about the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Then the United Nations has placed an investment of as much as $49 billion to aid in the development of water and sanitization infrastructure and services that can withstand the effects of climate change. So the United Nations has placed this amount of money, and other countries such as Japan, Vietnam, Singapore also have pledged monetary grants so that they can build a sustainable water infrastructure which can withstand the effects of worst impacts of climate change. So this was a key outcome of this United Nations Water Conference. If I talk about other outcomes which happened out of this conference, they are technology. So I was explaining this before also, that Water Action Decade talked about the transfer of technology related to water pollution and information related to the water as a sustainable development goal of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. And this was also a key outcome of this conference as well. There were specific innovations in the wastewater treatment or solar treatment of water in remote areas, and several proposals for incubation platforms, including the IBM Sustainability Accelerator, focused on water management. So the countries also talked about the technologies which they are building so that they can conserve water, as well as they can build water infrastructure so as to avoid the impacts of climate change. Then there is capacity building as well. The countries are becoming capable to deal with whatever issues that comes in future related to the problem of depletion of water. Then there is knowledge sharing as well. So the solutions to the problem of water conservation are already existent, but the problem is the technology which the or the knowledge which the developed countries have, and the knowledge or the technologies which the developing countries lack. And that is why this conference focused on knowledge sharing. Why? So as to help the developing countries and the least developed countries also to conserve water if they are near to the river water resources. So this conference also talked about the knowledge sharing. So these were the key outcomes of this conference which happened in 2023. So if I now talk about the India's water vision, what is India's water vision? Let us see. So as we all know, India hosted the G20 presidency this year. And definitely water conservation was a key issue of India in this G20 presidency. India's water vision announced its water vision as a part of the Prime Minister's Vision India at the rate 2047 plan, and India is also working towards goal number 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals. If I talk about the efforts of India, India is ensuring access to safely managed domestic water under the Jal Jeevan Mission. Jal Jeevan Mission. So under the Jal Jeevan Mission, India is ensuring that the people in the rural areas of India as well are getting the access to sanitized and pure water. They have access to safe drinking water. Then the other efforts include strengthening groundwater governance. So India is also working towards effective groundwater governance, because India is the largest consumer of groundwater, and in many Indian states what is happening is the groundwater is depleting, and that is a cause of concern for India, and that is why it is developing groundwater governance. Then Ministry for Jal Shakti. This is a special ministry dedicated to conservation of water and preservation of water, and it was established in the year 2019. Then there is Jal Kranti Abhiyan, again an important part of preserving water. This talks about preservation of water as a natural resource. Then there is National Water Mission, which comes under the ambitious NPACC, or the National Action Plan on Climate Change, developed by India. So National Water Mission forms this part of the climate change action program which India is developing so as to conserve the water, grant safe drinking water to all of the households in India, and to protect the water. In fact, it is also planning to clean the river bodies across India, so if they are polluted. And one of the ambitious mission in India also includes the Namami Gange project, which talks about cleaning of the Ganga river. So India is also working very hard to achieve the SDG goal number 6 of the Sustainable Development Goals. With this, we come to a conclusion of our today's discussion. We have seen the United Nations Water Conference of 2023, its key outcomes. We have also analyzed at why water is important for sustainable development. We have also seen water forms the part of goal number 6 of SDG goals. And we have also seen that a collective action is required from the countries all across the world to conserve the water. Now let us see a practice question for your prelims examination. Consider the following statements regarding the UN Water Conference of 2023. Your statement number 1 is, it aims to discuss the action plans of the governments on achieving water related SDG goals. Your statement number 2 is, it happened after a gap of almost 46 years. Which of the following statements are correct? Your options are 1 only. Your option B is 2 only, your option C is 1 and 2 only, and your option D is none of the above. Kindly drop your answer in the comment box below. Now let us analyze a practice question for your mains examination. The question is, discuss the important water missions to protect water and water bodies in India. So you'll introduce that India is working very hard to attain goal number 6 of the SDG goals. You will also discuss National Water Mission as a plan of and national action plan on climate change. You will also discuss various other government schemes such as the Namami Gange project, such as the Jal Jeevan mission, such as the Jal Kranti Abhiyan. So you will discuss all of these important ambitious missions launched by the government of India. And you will also discuss about the India's vision plan under the 2047 vision. So you will discuss all of this, and you will conclude that India is also working very hard to conserve water and to provide safe drinking water to all. You can conclude this your answer by stating this statement. I hope this session was insightful for you. If you found today's discussion helpful, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel for more such updates. Thank you.